not start this war. The ape who did is dead. His name was Koba. I killed him.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Greetings and salutations.
Oh, hi, Mark.
All right, I ran out of patience.
It's showtime.
Hello, and welcome back to Retrospect. My name is Matthew, and as always, I'm joined by Brady. Brady, how are you?
Doing great, man. How about you?
I am doing well. This week, we weren't sure what we were going to check out. I didn't want to see Abigail. I just was not interested. So we took this opportunity and revisited some Planet of the Apes films.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I have thoughts. Like, a majority of these thoughts are very positive, but I do have some thoughts.
Okay.
There is one of these movies that I can't do it. And I just don't get the hype behind it. I see the idea. I get the aesthetic. And there's parts of this movie that I do really like. But one of these movies just, there's something very off about it. And I can't put my finger on it. And I hope we can figure that out tonight.
It's Mark Wahlberg. Man, that one it's so bad.
Dude, it's like the 1967 one. It's just all no. Dude, that movie is actually really good. Holy smokes.
Dude,
I remember watching that one
good.
Years ago and I was blown away.
Yeah.
The ending reveal is just still holds up today.
Honestly, a lot of those old ones hold up if you ever want to check them out. None of them are as great as the first one, obviously, but they're pretty solid movies.
How many of them are there?
Let's see, I think there's 5 of the originals, and then there's the Burton remake, which is not good. Would not recommend that.
Are we getting like Dune territory with the amount of like items or different like iterations there is of this?
You know, that's probably a good comparison, actually. I think this is a book. I don't know. I've never read it.
Really? I didn't know
it
that.
One time in like a store, and I didn't know it was a book.
That's interesting. I did not know that. And so I wonder if, obviously you can't answer this, or maybe you can, I don't know. I wonder if Caesar is the central like character point in the book, or if the Caesar stuff was more of like a envisioned thing they decided to use as a vehicle to get to the book.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think this trilogy of movies is so interesting because it's something that should not have worked at all, but it did. And it's it's Planet of the Apes, of course, but it's just so it's a rare case where like an IP is super original, like it doesn't really draw a ton from the source material. It kind of just tells its own story. It's really cool.
What's really interesting about this is the Rupert Wyatt of it all, the director of the first one.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I'm looking at his efforts outside of Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I don't see anything that I recognize The Gambler, but I don't see anything, and that's not a great movie, by the way. I don't see anything that I'm like, I get how he made this movie.
Yeah, no, it's such an anomaly for him, I feel like. And I'll be honest, I don't think these movies stay as consistently good if he's the guy working on them.
100% not. And what's the interesting part of that is that I do think Rise is my second favorite one.
Okay.
I think the one that I don't like is 100% probably a better movie. It's just not the movie I wanted.
Okay. I respect that.
But I completely agree with you. Matt Reeves like put this thing on his back with Dawn and just carried it. Rewatching War today, I'm like Matt Reeves is all over Batman. Like, it's insane. like I don't know who shot War for the Planet of the Apes, but you could tell that was Matt Reeves telling him what to photograph.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a beautiful movie to look at.
It really is. And I mean, both his movies just look so good. But there are some shots in that last one that just like take your breath away.
So, I'm going to pull the curtain back. The one movie of this franchise that does not work for me is War for the Planet of the Apes. I thought I had just I thought when I initially watched it, I was very disappointed in it. I didn't think it was a bad movie. I was just disappointed in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was eager to rewatch it again because I was like, Matt, there's past Matt was just not as eloquent in the film world as present Matt is today. I was riding that boat, man. I was hoping, and it just doesn't work for me. There's something about it that I just cannot get on the boat with, and I don't know what that thing is yet. It's not Caesar because, dude, like Caesar, I like Caesar. Andy Serkis should be nominated for every single one of these. Dude is incredible, especially in War for the Planet of the Apes. But specifically War, that's the one that I'm like, I just can't get behind. I don't know what it is yet. I haven't figured it out. But that's the one I'm like, I don't know. I just don't like it.
It's a weird one. I mean, I think I definitely had that reaction when I first saw it. Like, I was kind of disappointed, I think. I remember being especially disappointed by like the very end of the movie. And just like me and my friends were all just like, well, I guess that's just how they're going to end it. And, but I did rewatch it, and I've rewatched it a couple times, but I think it got up as high as like a 9 out of 10 for me after that.
I can't argue it.
It's like, it's come down like a notch, maybe. Yeah, it's definitely not what you would have expected, the direction they go with it.
Well, I think I said this at the beginning. I don't think it's a bad movie. In fact, I think it's better than Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I think the problem with War for me specifically is that it's not the movie, like you said, that I expected. And then two, it just doesn't feel like it fits in the puzzle that is this iteration of Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
Because I think you can make the transition from Rise, which is like a coming of age to an action movie, into an action movie. I don't know if you can go from an action movie into a slow burn character study, like thought-provoking drama.
Mm-hmm.
That just like what's the word I'm looking for here? Trajectory, I don't think works.
That's the interesting thing is I think whenever it rose so high for me was I was watching it by itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think me doing this rewatch through all three is where it really hit me that, like you're saying, it's just kind of like something is off. Something doesn't exactly line up, connect well with the other two entries.
It makes me wonder, like, if Matt Reeves did the first one, like Rise for the Planet of the Apes. One, does he have better titles that make more sense? Two, like, does that puzzle fit a lot better? Does that puzzle piece actually fit in this particular puzzle? Have you thought about that?
You know, I haven't. But yeah, I feel like I almost wonder if this would be like more of like a middle chapter for him in his trilogy, like some of the events in this movie. It's weird. It honestly kind of feels like two movies mashed into one.
Yeah.
A bit. And I think that sort of is because he's trying different genres in this one movie, like a prison escape movie, and then like a movie about like tragic loss. Like there's just like it's kind of like a couple of different ideas all thrown together, and I feel like maybe it does feel a bit crammed at some points. because of that. I don't know if you feel that way, but
I did watch this movie, and I was like, I don't know if I want to say this on the podcast, but because I don't want people to be like, how are you comparing this one thing to this thing? And let me be clear, when I make this comparison, it's not lost on me how stark this comparison is. I was watching this movie, I'm like, dude's really trying to make Shawshank Redemption right now. The Wood Caesar. And
yeah, no, it's very you've probably never seen it. There's a movie called The Great Escape with Steve McQueen, and this is very much like that. Like, remember in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he talks about how he missed out on this big role and stuff. That it's that role in The Great Escape. Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely along those lines, like that, like a Shawshank. You're definitely hitting it right.
Let me ask you this. What do you want to start this podcast? How do you want to dive into all three of these?
I guess we really should just go one by one, maybe just a little bit on each one. Yeah. So Rise, I remember like the trailers for this movie and it's being like, I don't know. It's like a monkey movie, like, and I'd never seen the original. I really didn't know anything about these movies. I was like, I really don't care about that. But at the time, I was like a pretty big James Franco fan just because it's around, like, you know, I grew up with the Raimi Spider-Man movies and all this stuff, like Pineapple Express, all that stuff. And so I went to see it just for him, I guess. And then, it turned out to be like the most movie that should not have worked, but worked ever, you know?
No, I feel that. What's interesting about this, and I'm going to like completely like annihilate my point here by saying what I'm about to say. It's ironic you bring up James Franco because one, also Raimi Spider-Man's. Two, I really liked Oz a lot. I think that's a really underrated movie.
Wow. We should do that one day.
Dude, I'm down.
We should do that before Wicked.
Let's do it. Yeah. 100%. I'm all in.
I'm so glad I found someone else who likes that movie. All right.
It's such like it's such the perfectly, I don't even say it's like perfectly bad, but like it's like so perfectly, it's in a vacuum. Like it's good in a very specific vacuum. And I just like it.
Very Raimi.
Yes.
Very Sam Raimi.
Anywho, the thing that I remember seeing the trailers for this movie and I'm like, I don't want to watch. And it's ironic. I wasn't into the movies the same way that I am today. So I didn't know this already existed. But I'm like, I'm not trying to watch Tim Burton's Twilight like movie about like apes. Like I'm just not trying to watch that. That was something that was like floating around in my head before I even realized he's already made one. And then I forgot when I watched this, but it's probably been within the past like decade. Since I like everyone's like Dawn. I watched it. I'm like, oh my God, I really missed out. Like this thing is great. And we were talking about this the other day. Oh no, this is actually the next one, but these are really like great examples of like, hey, sometimes we just need to talk, like just have a conversation and talk things out. Dude, like the way this movie was so much smarter than it needed to be. Like it didn't even try to project that either. Like it just allowed you to infer that. And I don't know how this movie, again, I go back to what Rupert Wyatt has made. Like I just don't, you said it right. It's such an anomaly. I don't get, I don't, this is like everything just like the stars aligned. Someone won the lottery that day. I'm sure this movie's incredible. Like, I don't know. I didn't know Brian Cox was in this. Like that caught me off guard. Like John Lithgow's incredible.
Oh, he's so good.
Dude.
So good in this movie.
Yeah. I really love this movie a lot. And to me, it really, really perfectly sets up Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Like it sets up the franchise. So like, you know how you watch a movie and you know, there's potential to a franchise and you're like, I just land the plane. We'll talk about things later. This movie does it and does it in such a way that you're not thinking about the franchise being set up.
Yeah. It's so smart. It's like, I don't know how much you know about, like, when Nolan was making Batman Begins. Like, the studio were basically having him set it up in a way where it could be a prequel to the Tim Burton Batman movie.
No, I didn't know that.
Like, they were super, they weren't, like, wanting to start a new franchise exactly. So, like, they kind of made it sort of line up to where, like, you could sort of jump from that into this, like, if you wanted to, or, like, that's how they could leave it off. And this movie very much, like, plants little seeds of, like, how it could just lead directly into the original, like astronauts being lost in space, referred to on the news, like, stuff like that. And both of those were so successful that, like, they ended up becoming a trilogy of movies. I feel like this is very comparable to that, in that I'm not sure how much faith they had in it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it just turned out to be this really big success. And they made more of them. And it is interesting, though, that, like, it sets up things that I don't know if it exactly sets it up, but I think we'll get into it more on the second one. But I think it that Matt Reeves, like, finds ways to flesh out some of the ideas you wouldn't have even thought that, like, would have been built upon in a sequel. He kind of made it look like it was setting up, like, retroactively a bit, I feel like.
Yeah, like, in a lot of ways, Matt Reeves pulls, like, it's not a 1-to-1 like ratio, but in a lot of ways, Matt Reeves straight up like pulls off like the Rogue One to A New Hope thing, where he retroactively figures out a way to get to point Z, and why we even attempted that. And it's flawless, man. And I would have never guessed that this movie specifically, and this is no hate on James Franco. Maybe there should be, but, like, there's no hate on him at all. Like, I think anyone seeing this in 2011, like the trailers for this, and then seeing James Franco attached to this, and that's like, it just felt very, again, like Robert Pattinson in Twilight.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're following film too, like, I just don't think you think Rupert Wyatt at the time is like, yeah, this thing's gonna be great. I just don't see that. And dude, I can only imagine they far exceeded expectations with this one. It's not a perfect movie. I would say there's some hiccups in it. Like, I think the Genesis is more interesting at the beginning of the movie than it is at the end of the movie. The CEO is a little wonky at times. I don't necessarily love all of that. And then, like, you know, I love James Franco, and I don't think he's bad in this, but you sure do, like, lose interest in the John Lithgow James Franco dynamic when Caesar's out, like, becoming an ape.
Yeah. Dude, it is crazy, like, how much. I just remember thinking at the time, like, how well this works with just scenes with nobody talking, just nonverbal communication, and just how cool it was that they were able to pull that off.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about that, right? Like, with Godzilla and Kong. Like, it's incredible that came after this.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, Matt Reeves doubles down on that with Dawn, and he's like, you think I'm tripling down? I'm quadrupling down with War.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, I'm a little bit worried about the new one, because I just don't know. Like, watching the trailer, they're just going around just talking, like, fluently, and just it just seems a little weird. And I know that's like the natural evolution of
Sure.
where this is headed, but it's just like I just love how they handle that in these movies so much that I don't know how I'm gonna feel about that.
It's really going to be very dependent on the first 10 minutes of that movie.
Yeah.
If they can figure out a way to sell you on it in 10 minutes, which I have faith that they can, because one, I forget, I think it's Wes Ball that's directing this upcoming one. He's already been given the keys to something else. I'm blanking on what it is, but he's already
Zelda.
Yes. And so I got to think that they have a lot of faith in this dang thing. And then two, like, I don't know, the marketing is really, really heavy right now. They're marketing it really heavy. Mm-hmm. And then three, they got an early access screening that they released weeks ago that I was already able to get tickets to. So I think they have a lot of faith in this thing.
That's good.
Yeah, if they can figure out a way to set that up in 10 minutes, which Rise of the Planet of the Apes absolutely allows for that to happen. Mm-hmm. Even Dawn, like it's built-in proof. And then if that was not proof enough, War for the Planet of the Apes is the concept right there. I just initially I was a little scared, like when the announcement happened, I was very scared.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was very worried.
When the trailer hit, I was like, I don't know, man. Like this feels a little.
The look of it's very.
Yes.
They've got the look down right, from what I can tell.
Another thing too. Speaking of the look, how the heck did they make Apes look this good in 2011?
Yeah, like it's interesting because they look so much better in the follow-ups to this, but like still in this one, it's like, how do they do that? I remember thinking that, just like, what? I don't understand this.
Dude, Argyle came out this year. 2024, the year of our Lord. 13 years later. Like, how? I need answers, Rupert Wyatt. I need answers. You want to go to Dawn? You ready to talk about Dawn?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, jump into it. Let's do it.
Dude, this movie is perfect. This is a perfect movie.
It has the juice.
I love this movie. Like, this is one of the greatest second movies ever in a series. Like, it's so good.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, it's Empire Strikes Back. It's the Two Towers. It's up there. The Dark Knight. It's not talked about enough. We're gonna get to this point later on, but it's not talked about enough.
Yeah. Man, it's amazing. Like, as good as Andy Serkis was in the last one, just like he takes it to a completely different level in this. It is crazy. I remember, how do you feel about, like, because you've mentioned already that he probably should have been like nominated for awards and stuff for this.
Have you seen my Letterboxd reviews of these movies?
They're all just the same.
Every single one, just the year changes.
But like, how do you? Because I know there's like a debate that a lot of his performance is due to the VFX artists. But I'm sorry, like, you can see there is so much like that you can, like, his eyes and stuff, like that's not VFX.
All right, I'm about to say something extremely controversial. Extremely controversial. It's going to stay between you, me, and this podcast. There is a certain movie out there that has won Best Actor. We've mentioned it. If certain things do not happen, I'm not sure that person wins Best Actor. I make that comparison because I think the reason that was nominated, and though it was absolutely warranted and should have won, is because of the real life circumstances of a thing that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it would have won. It probably would have been nominated for sure. I don't know that it would have won if real life circumstances did not happen. I say that to say this. This movie's not getting, Andy Serkis was not getting nominated, not because of the CGI or the, I'm blanking on what's called, the motion capture.
Okay.
That's an excuse. The reason this movie was not nominated is because it's genre.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Dude, and he's just what he's done with that technology throughout his entire career, like starting with Gollum, then King Kong, then these, and like Ventures of Tintin. Like it's so cool. Like that's like another reason I'm excited about this new one, because I feel like we haven't really capitalized on what he really built with that since these movies. Except for like, they use it in like Marvel stuff. But
especially the closest we've came to what like the heights of what this was is James Cameron playing with it with Avatar 2.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And James Cameron was always going to do that.
Which I mean, that was this the natural evolution of just like of Weta, who started with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Like that's whenever that studio was created. And then they've kind of carried out through, they did the Avatar movies, they did these movies. So, I mean, it makes sense that, like, they're the company that have perfected this over, like, 20-something years.
Yeah. Dude, I'm pissed off. Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
And this, again, like, this is King Kong if the movie was centered around him. And actually leaned into, we believe in this person. We're not saying he's the antagonist or the protagonist, but he is your central character, and we're banking on you loving this character.
Yeah.
And Andy Serkis just knocks it out of the park. Like, I told you the other day, I texted in our group chat that this is the perfect double feature with Civil War, because he is not an antagonist, nor is he a protagonist. You have to make your own decisions in this movie of, do I understand what the humans are fighting for? Do I understand what the apes are fighting for?
Dude, the ethics of these movies is so interesting.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, you can understand where everybody's coming from. For the most part. I mean, it gets a little drastic in the next one, but just like, in this one especially, it's like, you understand why everyone feels the way they do.
I remember watching this movie years ago and being like, I didn't go into this movie prepared to hate Gary Oldman. And I ended up like very much making the decision in this movie to hate Gary Oldman when I watched it years ago.
Yeah.
When I rewatched it this time, I'm like, dang it. Like, am I Gary Oldman?
It's so interesting. Man, and we haven't even talked about Toby Kebbell, man. As Kova, dude. He's so good. It's that was like, I remember around that time, that was around the time where like film talk on social media started getting big, like mid 2010s, and just like people do like lists of like the best movie villains and stuff. Like I would always be like, this guy as Koba is like one of my favorite movie villains ever.
Dude, I don't like Warcraft. I think it's a pretty awful movie. But I watched that entire movie for Toby Kebbell.
Really?
He's incredible in it. Like, did you watch it?
No.
He's really good in it. Like, it's incredible how good he is in that movie. But no, going back to Cobra, dude. I think you're right. Like, a lot of people talk about Andy Serkis and Caesar. Well deserved. Should. And when we talk about this franchise, we should talk about Caesar. Koba. I don't think your movie's only as good as your villain. And the fact that we could identify and resonate with Koba's feelings and still feel the rejection and the betrayal as well as you do.
Yeah.
And even up into the moment, right, where he's walking up underneath them with the gun. You're like, is he really going to do it? Or is Caesar's going to look down and see him? Like, is he really going to do it? And he does it. And I think a lesser movie would have had that like miscommunication. And I love that Matt Reeves just doubled down, is like, screw it, we're doing it. Like Koba is going to be a villain in this movie, and you're going to have room to be like, I understand.
Yeah. Man, it's really great. Just feel like, man, and then just how Caesar's trust and faith in him like leads to basically the big conflict occurring, and then that like continues on into the next movie. It's like man.
You know what's really interesting about Caesar? You just kind of like hit on it. Caesar, though he's an extremely smart like species and animal and thing in person, he makes so many, and this is the reason I think that it's one of the reasons that I think his character is so well developed and resonates with everyone, is because he makes the dumbest mistakes. Like one,
yeah,
like the whole, like he made the adolescent mistake of like going into this cage with all these other apes and then just turning them into more of himself, like allowing them to become more of their selves, right? Not the smartest of all the moves he's ever made, but I get it. Like, I understand. I would have done the same thing. 2, trusting Koba. Like, relying too much on your mantra. Relying too much on your... Like, it's almost borderline arrogant. Like, thinking that I am the person they look up to. There's no way... Not take the friendliness out of it. There's no way that they're going to betray me. I did all of these things for him. I'm the person, I'm the one that freed them. And though, like, I don't think he's outwardly arrogant, like, it's not intentionally arrogant, but he 100% has this, like, level of confidence that allows him and forces him into these mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't stop with Dawn. It goes into war as well.
Yeah. It does. Do you, how do you like the human stuff a lot in Dawn?
Actually, yes. I was kind of surprised at how much I do. Do you?
Yeah. I feel like it's grown on me since its release. Like at first I wasn't. I think like whenever I first saw it, I wasn't that into it. But now, like, I really like it, and I really like the parallels of them and Caesar and his, like, their tribe and Caesar and his tribe. Like, it's really cool.
I think the really cool thing, again, going back to the double feature with Civil War of it all, the really cool thing about Dawn specifically is, like, you have very static and defined imagery of the extremists of the group, Koba, and then the people making fun of Koba, right?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Jesse Plemons, I completely forgot about that scene in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And it holds up so well. I told Brianna, I was like, when we were watching this, I'm like, there's a moment in here you're going to be like, that's almost as tense as, and it still holds up. Yeah. But no, like, going back to my analogy, like, Koba is an extremist, and the people making fun of Koba were extremists, right? Mm-hmm. They had people who followed them and trusted them, and then the people in the middle. You got Malcolm, you got Gary Oldman's character, I'm blanking on his name, Dreyfus, and all of the others who are just trying to survive, trying to figure out a way that they can coexist. And then you got Caesar and his people that follow him, the same thing. This movie just lays that out so incredibly well, and it serves both as like a very thought-provoking movie, but also just such a visually entertaining movie. The way that it not even just the way it ends, because I think that's where War for the Planet of the Apes just changed it to a completely separate movie. Like, this movie is not an action movie just at the end. It's not an action movie just at the beginning. It's literally an action movie from beginning to end. And to have the underlying themes that this movie specifically has is just a massive feat that like I don't know that people expected it even after watching Rise and how good that movie was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, trying to think like you said, it's very action heavy, but I don't know, it's very very comparable to his Batman movie, you know.
Yeah.
Just like he uses the action in a smart way. It's all to service the plot.
Yeah, it motivates characters and it motivates the plot and it
Mhm.
pushes things forward as opposed to feeling like feeling filler, right? It's like it's not
Yeah.
utilized in a way that like the Godzilla and the recent Godzilla and Kong used action. Like there was actual
it's not,
meaning to it.
It's not plot to service the action, it's action to propel the plot,
Exactly.
which I really appreciate when a movie can pull that off.
All right, you ready?
Mhm.
This one's gonna be.
Oh,
different.
wait.
Okay.
I was going to say,
Please.
I love, and just like this like kind of feeds into why I think Dawn is such a perfect movie. Is the structure of it? It's just the it's very obvious, but the opening shot being like centered like in on his eyes, and then the final shot going into his eye. I just love stuff like that.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
it. It's so cool.
Damien Chazelle was like, watch this movie and was like, I know how I'm ending my movie. He went back to the editing bay and got him on the phone. Because I think they both came out in 2014, right?
Yeah.
Also, fun fact: there's a kid named Scott Lang in this movie.
In what movie?
In Dawn of the Apes, yes. I'm looking at the letterbox right now. Anywho,
Oh, boy.
do we want to briefly talk about Jason Clarke and Malcolm here? Or do we want to? Because I have another question for War.
Oh, sure.
Dude, he's so good in this.
Mhm.
And this can lead straight into what I'm about to say. Why the heck was he not in War for the Planet of the... Like, I understand what happened, but why did we make that choice?
No, yeah, that's a problem. That is
Like,
a problem. I don't
at
really
least-
think about that, but that,
At least start the movie off with that incident.
yeah. No, I remember thinking. Whenever I went to see the first time in the theater, like when there's that part at the end of War where the one group of soldiers takes out the group there, and then like the one guy turns around and sees Caesar there. Like I was like, oh, they're going to reveal that it's Malcolm from the last one. Like there was like something in my head because like I remember thinking like, why is he not in this movie? Because it doesn't seem like it is really. There's not a substantial time jump.
It's 5
Because
years, I
his
think.
kid's still pretty young. The one that was born in Dawn. So yeah,
I think it's 5 years. I
Yeah,
could be
mean,
wrong
as
because I think it was
Stark is
10.
the-
I think it was 10 from Rise to Dawn, and I think this one was 15.
So like, and like as sparse as the human population is, like, it's not like it would be that big of a jump to have those characters return in this.
So the real world answer, I'm assuming, would be that one probably could not get him because of like scheduling conflict would be my guess. I doubt. I refuse to believe. Maybe that's a better way to say it. That this was not in Matt Reeves' head. Like I gotta have Malcolm in War for the Planet of the Apes. Like it makes no sense not to. I refuse to believe that he's like, I'm not going to have Malcolm in this movie. So what I think would have been a good idea if I believe that it's scheduling conflicts is make it a 2-day shoot and do it like kill him off at the very beginning, let him like meet the people who showed up, allow Malcolm to like, no, you don't understand. Like they're just trying to survive. They want to coexist. And guess what this does? It adds so much more stakes to this movie. if you see, and I have a problem with this, by the way, if you see Woody Harrelson kill Malcolm right at the beginning of this movie, it's almost borderline Infinity War with Loki, right?
Yeah.
Like if you allow the opportunity for Woody Harrelson's colonel to kill Malcolm immediately, you're like, oh crap, like this guy's serious. You understand his motivation a lot more. He doesn't have to give you the deep exposition in the middle of the movie why he's doing the thing he's doing. And
Like
I just
there's the scene where he tells them about the soldiers who like disagreed with him, and he or they came from that other group, and then he like killed them and sent just the one guy back. Like show that and like have those people be like Malcolm's one of them or something like that.
Yeah. Like it just feels like such a weird choice that I feel it could have been amended in literally 2 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
Anywho, let's talk about why I'm disappointed in this movie. The puzzle piece doesn't fit, man. Like I tried to think through it, and I think you're right. I would love to have watched this movie without knowing the existence of the other two, because I think the character study of it all is incredible. Like it's truly, truly, truly good, because you do get to see again Andy Serkis as Caesar struggle internally, externally. It's really, really convicting things, but it just does not feel like the thing that I was watching with Dawn or even with Rise. Like it just feels like it almost feels like the movie became so big that the movie had to be so big. Like, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, yeah.
And it just bloated out of proportion to a sense that like it's almost and I get it because it's a trilogy, right? It felt like it had to be something like, oh crap, we gotta make Return of the Jedi now. Instead of just trying to, like, this just does not feel as contained. Do you get that?
Yeah, and something I'm thinking about right now is it's weird. It's like I feel like he suffers loss in all three movies. Like say the first one, he loses like John Lithgow. Like that's a big thing.
Sure.
And then he has to leave them at the end. And then the second one, like, I mean,
it's betrayal.
He almost dies, and then like he's separated from his family and stuff. And then and I get there's a lot of like shock value to it, but just like the way it's so rushed that his family gets killed in this it's really weird. And like I get that it's like the final thing to kind of push him over the edge and to just like hate, like just push him into like a stage of just like hating all humans and stuff. But I don't know, like that's where it starts to feel a little rushed, and that's where it starts to feel like maybe they had to cram a few things into this one movie.
Do you feel like it has anything to do with like Woody Harrelson's character, the reason this movie doesn't completely work?
I don't know. I like his character a lot. I do. That's another thing where I just wish we had a bit more of him. Because I feel like there's a lot of just like visual things to show you like how messed up this dude is, like his obsession with like war history, like stuff like that. But there's not a lot of just like I
didn't think about that. That's
like
a great point.
Actually showing it. I don't,
Yeah, it's very much is it wrong of me to say that it's very much a Zack Snyder character?
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying.
Like, I'm thinking of like the iconic shot in like Batman v Superman of like the pearls like falling. And I'm not like, Matt Reeves is about 15 times better than Zack Snyder, and maybe more than that, first of all. And this is not as heavy handed as that. But I think for me, the problem with Woody Harrelson's character is not Woody Harrelson, first of all. I think like the acting of it all is fantastic. It just like, I just don't know that I get. This is going to seem very strange. Where I understood the passion of why a CEO would want to release like this medicine and get rich quick. And I understood Gary Oldman trying to protect his city and Koba seeing the humans as awful. I don't really understand Woody Harrelson until he gives that like 5-minute scene of the exposition. Like, even though I can see the imagery and like him acting just in like, he's got this like very monotone thing going on and it works. Like that's what that character would look like.
Yeah.
I just don't know that the character specifically was written super well. Like, again, I'm thinking like you mentioned at the beginning, do we really feel, or I'm putting words in your mouth, but I think this is what you're asking. Do we really feel the impact of that beginning when Caesar loses family? I almost wonder if we don't cut to, because we obviously as an audience we know Woody Harrelson's a major actor in this movie, but the character of what's his name? Green Caesar's son. I'm blinking on his name.
I can't remember his name right now.
Anywho, Caesar's son. We'll call him that. Caesar's son's very much in a interesting position because like he's Caesar's son, and I feel like he probably feels like he's living in his shadow, especially like post Koba and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And I feel like Caesar's son specifically would want to have meaning and feel purpose. And I could see him having an opportunity to protect his mom and his little brother, but trying to fill those shoes that Caesar fills, right? And I think it'd have been such an impactful moment for us to actually see him trying to step into that and Woody Harrelson being like, no, and kills him immediately. Yeah. I think that would have served Caesar's son's character. Maybe I would have remembered his name. And then 2, I think that would have served. No, that was a bad jab. And then I feel like that would have really set up Woody's character. And again, that it does the thing that Dawn does, right? It's action that serves the motivation and plot of the storyline.
Yeah.
And I just feel like just shoving this Zack Snyder imagery and just heavily relying on Woody to make himself feel very intimidating, it just doesn't come across to me as well as they think it does, I guess.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's like, I know he kind of explains that, like, what happened with his son and everything, but the way they present his character, it's just like, I don't feel like he was really that far off from being that evil even before that moment, you know? Like, I don't know if I can like, you know, he's telling the story about his son and like, that's kind of where I'm sorry. Broke him a bit, but like, for me, it's just like, the way they present his character, I don't see how he was all that different probably before that, you know?
Would this have been a more interesting movie, hypothetically, if Malcolm was his son?
Malcolm was his son.
If Malcolm was Woody Harrelson's son.
Yeah, maybe.
I guess the whole like second spread of the virus thing doesn't work. Maybe it does. I don't know. But like maybe they could have figured out a way to like write that in. I just think there's not enough specifically for Woody Harrelson's character to feel like he's really part of this like franchise. Whereas like Koba definitely had that, and even Gary Oldman's character had that, and even Genesis had that, right? I just don't feel that Woody Harrelson's character has that, and I almost wonder if that's one of the biggest issues with this movie, or if it's the fact that it's just incredibly slow.
Yeah, like, I like him. I think he does really well, but just he feels like he's from like a completely different series of movies.
Dude, he feels like he's in a Martin Scorsese movie. And that's a compliment, too. Like,
no, like, he's doing great. It's just, I don't know how well it fits into this grand story that they're telling.
Yeah, there's something off about it. And I'm sad to report this. I've only watched this movie twice. I watched it in the theater and I'm like, dude, this is slow. And then I watched it again today. Now, I don't know if I was just tired or not. I fell asleep about 10 minutes, like through about 10 to 15 minutes of this, like right in the middle.
No, it's a very slow movie, very slow burn movie.
Now, all of that being said, dude, Caesar's incredible. I'm about to boycott the Oscars. And
this isn't my favorite of the movies, but this is the best Andy Serkis is in this series.
100%. If it was not for Andy Serkis, I don't know that I could have made it through this thing.
Yeah.
Can I talk about one other thing with this movie that really annoys the crap out of me? I see what they were trying to do too, and I understand what they were trying to do. This movie is really difficult to watch. It's very bleak. Enter Steve Zahn. And Bad Ape.
Oh, yeah. I had a feeling I was watching this again, and I was like, I feel like Matt's doesn't like this.
I think the interesting thing about this character specifically is the way they introduce him. He's supposed to be very smart, very aware, hyper aware, and they just made him a kook, man. Like, you can't, like, after his second scene, you can't take him serious.
Yeah. He's like, I mean, I'm going to make the comparison. Here we go. He's like the Jar Jar Binks of this movie.
100%. Like, that's not out of the realm of, like, comps, in my opinion. It's very, like, the levity there that they tried to add, bleak. Steve Zahn. For reference, he can see my hand. It's nowhere close.
Yeah. It's like, when he first shows up, I'm like, okay, this is nice. Like, he's pretty funny. And then they kind of just double down on it a bit too much. And it kind of takes you out of what is a very serious movie.
Dude, the one that I'm like, dude, can we just get this character out of this movie? Was at the very end, or near the end, like the climactic scenes that are happening where the explosions are going on, and my man's is just like, again, I'm acting, so I'm sorry, but he's like shoveling the people to the left, and then he sees all these explosions happen, he starts panicking, and he just stands there, and someone else has to come pick up my boy after like 5 seconds. I'm like, dude, like, I know you're smarter than this. Like, this is clearly a writer writing this down to maybe make it like feel like a joke out of the character. And I just could not unsee that.
I know. It feels like some of it feels like, and it's probably not the case, but it feels like studio noted a bit, like, this is too much, this is a bit too dark, we gotta do something here.
Did y'all see that BB-8 in that one Force Awakens movie? I got an idea.
And I love Steve Zahn.
No, he's incredible.
Like, he's really good, but
this one was not it. How did we feel about Maurice talking?
Oh, I love it.
I did too. I think.
Dude, Maurice is the best.
100%. Like, I think a movie where Maurice specifically calls out Caesar, like, you're doing the Koba thing. I can't remember what he says, but it's like you got a lot of Koba in you or something. A lesser movie would not have figured out that simple line.
Yeah.
And then a lesser actor, well, I guess acting, I don't know he's doing sign language. A lesser director, I guess, would not have figured out a way to make that work in the way that Matt Reeves made that work. And then that coming full circle with Caesar was so incredibly earned. Oh my goodness. How did we feel about like the donkey storyline? Do you think that worked for you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't I just don't. Kind of just doesn't make sense to me a bit. You know, like I like the sort of end moment that you get there with that, but I don't know. Nothing about that makes sense to me. Like how you would get to that point.
No, I don't think so either. Especially with like the Winter character. That was just like the betrayal, I think, hit, right? Like you were like, oh my God, like this dude just like set them up.
Mm-hmm.
But then you think about it for more than a second, you're like, but why?
Yeah.
I say all that to say this. Like, this is one heck of a 7 out of 10 movie. And I'm in the vast minority there. Like, so this is the point that I think we finally talk about the thing that we should have been talking about initially, and that more people should be talking about. You know what point I'm talking about? Why the heck is this trilogy not respected?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can't figure it out.
It's weird because it's like, but it's also weird because like every time I see these movies being talked about, it's basically just like, this is like one of the best trilogies ever. Why do we not talk about it enough?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's like when someone throws the Breakfast Club on like at a hangout or something. You're like, oh, I love that movie. That's one of the greatest movies ever made. You never watch it when you're at home alone.
Really?
You see my point? Like, what? That's what it feels like, right? Like, people love the Breakfast Club when it's playing on a TV. And I don't know why we have to just pretend like this trilogy does not exist. I haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah. It's odd. I mean, it's really weird. And like, I don't know, like so these came out, I guess it was 2011,
2017.
14, 17.
Yeah.
Is that like, did it just kind of get lost in like the prime of Star Wars hype and the MCU building to its climax a bit?
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Another question is any way War for the Planet of the Apes specifically, like the initial reaction, I don't know what the Rotten Tomatoes score is, by the way, of War for the Planet of the Apes audience or not. Any chance that maybe skewed some of the like love around this movie or the franchise, I should say?
It could have. I mean, I just know, just from the two of us and like from my friends, just that it definitely was, especially coming off of the absolute heater that was Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, that it did feel a little bit of a letdown. Not that it was a bad movie, but it was just like, yeah, I could see how that could play into it a bit.
Yeah, but like when you like zoom out, right, and just look at the broad picture, I don't know how people just don't talk about this. Lord of the Rings is what comes up, right? Like the original Star Wars trilogy comes up. The Dark Knight trilogy comes up. And I guess maybe you could say maybe this does not exist if the Dark Knight trilogy doesn't exist. But how many times do we have to say that before we just realize every movie builds on itself?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think, let me ask you another question. How many can you name on a hand until you get to the point, like how many characters who's like really lived into a, or how many actors has really lived into a character to the point where you're like, this person just got better and better and better? How many characters can you name before you get to Andy Serkis and Caesar? Does that make sense?
I don't know. I mean, you just mean like throughout a series, like they grew,
Yeah,
like basically together with the character.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think it's a very short
he's
list.
one of the best. Yeah.
I really do. Like, and I don't think that's hyperbole.
No, definitely not.
Anywho, anything you want to say before we say goodbye to this trilogy for now?
I mean, it's great. It's just so surprising that these movies are as good as they are. I think maybe that's another point. Maybe I don't know. I don't know how successful they were financially. I guess they must have been good because they made 3 of them, and now they're making another one like 7 years later. But man, they're great, and they should be recognized among the great trilogies for sure.
Yeah, I watching these again in like close proximity to each other really made me realize, how much we take these for granted.
Mm-hmm.
We live in the world, and I'm also one of these people who thinks The Force Awakens is a fun movie, and I really enjoy the heck out of that thing. The Last Jedi is incredible, by the way, and if you think anything otherwise, you're wrong. And then obviously, what's that?
I said I agree.
Exactly. And then we won't talk about the other one. I don't know how those things, as great as The Last Jedi is, by the way, are on the precipice of our tongue, but this is not. That will haunt me forever. Like, I do not get it. How do we still talk about, and again, this is no knock on Nolan, no knock on Christian Bale, no knock on any of that specific franchise. How do we talk about that, but don't talk? I can't answer that question. I will never get it. These movies are so incredibly important, and every single one of them was just a banger after banger after banger. Now, I say all that to say this again. Like, I was pretty harsh on War for the Planet of the Apes here, but dude, it's a dang good movie. Point blank. Is it the best of the franchise? Absolutely not. It's probably my least favorite, but I think it might be possibly a very close second best.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's uncomfortably close because I think Dawn's pretty darn perfect.
Yeah.
It just didn't work for me. But I will never understand how it's not recognized as a truly great trilogy.
Yeah, which I mean, I feel like there's that one movie in every trilogy,
Yeah, 100%.
Like, with the exception of like Lord of the Rings, with which, like, I guess like with Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, I don't like it as much as the other two at all. But like this one, if it's like a bit separated, like, oh, this is a really good movie.
100%.
But I never just flip on Return of the Jedi. I only watch Return of the Jedi if like I'm watching all of them, and that's kind of like this one too.
That's a good point.
Or like the third one of these, yeah.
Even The Last Jedi is kind of like that, right? Like, I don't just flip on Last Jedi. I need what? We've been saying this. Next opportunity we get, let's just do The Last Jedi.
Oh gosh.
There's some revisionist history that needs to be made.
Oh, I've been there from the beginning.
No, I have too, by the way. But we just need to correct everyone else.
That's right.
Anyway, you see anything since we last talked? Any takes you got to get off?
Yeah. Oh, we both saw the Guy Ritchie movie.
Yeah, what you? I think I saw that you did. You like it? What was the vibe?
Yeah, it was fun. I felt like when it worked, it worked well.
Sure.
When it didn't work, I was like, "What are we doing here?"
Did you get what I was saying? By the way, like, I think it's a really fun movie, and when it's fun, it's really fun. But when it tries to be anything more than that, I don't know that it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, I was hoping I wasn't too harsh on that. Like, and I made that point pretty clear. But no, it's very fun. If you watch the trailer and you're like, that looks like a fun movie, I promise you, it's going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched Challengers, man.
Yeah.
Holy crap. It's not the movie you think it is. Not the movie anyone thinks it is, but it's incredible. It really is. I was truly shocked. I moved Monkey Man out of my third spot for it, by the way. It's my number 3 on the year. Challengers is really dang fun. Anywho, I don't know what we're doing next week, but I don't think it's going to be The Last Jedi next week. We'll figure that out. We will see you guys then, though. Adios.